After years of doing these presentations and on different stages, I came to the conclusion that true professionals are the ones that endure until the last panel. So thank you. My name is Roee Laufer. I had the pleasure of, in the past 25 years, to head and to fulfill some multiple executive cyber roles in different sectors, security, financial, high-tech, energy. And I can tell you that the most challenging one of them all was building and heading the cyber division for the Israel Airports Authority. Now, the Israel Airports Authority and the complexity of civil aviation, we can talk about that for hours. But if I had to put it in a couple of sentences, what is the biggest challenge? And one, first and foremost, is the fact that civil aviation is an ecosystem. Some panels before touched on this. I think this panel actually demonstrates this because we have Civil Aviation Authority, we have a national regulator, we have the airlines, and a technological vendor. So this, I think, reflects the some of the ecosystem, the complex ecosystem of civil aviation. And the second thing is, if we wanted to touch about the ultimate challenge for cybersecurity in aviation is trying to make cybersecurity a true pillar of safety. And this is a critical challenge for the industry. Previous panels touched about the adoption of new technologies, AI-enabled operations, cloud services, advanced connectivity, and so on. And when you have different digitization processes, it means an increased attack surface for cyber incidents, and we see increasingly sophisticated cyber attacks that actually try to target civil aviation. This in turn make regulators try to keep up. And this complexity actually brings one critical question, and that's how do we transform cybersecurity from an IT obligation to an actual operational, safety-driven pillar for the civil aviation stakeholders, and we'll touch on that in this panel. Ultimately, what we'll try to demonstrate is that compliance is not just a compliance checklist, but rather we want to show how a true cyber resilient program should look like in modern aviation. I'll let, in a few words, my panelists just to present yourselves, maybe. Of course.
Hi, Eliran Almog. I'm the CEO of CyViation. It's a startup company in doing risk assessment and risk management for aviation. It was founded by IAI and a group of American investors with the goal and the understanding that there is a big gap in protecting the aircraft. That's our focus, protecting the aircraft. And our first product is risk assessment and risk management.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for staying with us. My name is Tamir Goren. I'm Director of Strategic Programs at the Israel National Cyber Directorate in the Technology Division. And what that means is that I'm not doing the day-to-day defense like our defense division, but rather leading strategic programs like Aviation and trying to promote it from a technology point of view by building an ecosystem and creating the kind of partnerships which I'll talk about more in the panel. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Introduce myself again as a panelist. Tsofit Shachar. I'm the CISO of El Al, Israel Airlines. Earlier for El Al, I was the global CISO of Elbit Systems, Homeland Security. Great to be here.
It changes when you're a panelist, right? It's a different resume. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alook. I'm from the CAA of Israel. Like Esti mentioned, it's the Israeli FAA, which is a nice definition. We're 120 people, so it's small Israel. Yeah. And that's good. I'm within the Civil Aviation Authority of Israel for the last 14 years, dealing mainly with the connection of us with the ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization. My duty is to be in charge of implementing international standards in the Israeli regulations and preparing our authority for future audits, etc. And I led the efforts over the last years to establish the aviation cybersecurity oversight within our CAA, which is not part of our DNA, cyber. And I think that I'm the only panelist who doesn't have so much knowledge about cyber, but I'll try to add some values.
It means you're fresh.
Yes,
What it fresh. So you know what? Staying true to the topic of cyber regulation, maybe Eli, we'll start with you. So what do you see are the main challenges in regulators face in building cybersecurity oversight capacity?
Yeah, it's a big question, and as I said, for Civil Aviation Authority around the world, cybersecurity, in most cases, is not part of our DNA.
Exactly.
And in the case of the Civil Aviation Authority of Israel, we don't deal with security at all, but with safety. And that's something that we need to establish, this capacity. I think that there are different challenges for different aviation authorities. It depends, for example, if you're a state of design of aircraft and manufacturing. So you have this kind of challenge, and if you're not, Israel is home for many, many advanced technologies and different challenges as well. But there is one thing that is for sure in common, and the biggest challenge and the first critical, I say, element is to recruit the appropriate people. And by saying the appropriate people or competent or qualified personnel, for us as a governmental entity to recruit a cyber specialist was a long journey. It's not the private sector, and you need to get the budget for it and the leadership support. And yes, there is good news because recently, last month, we managed after a long journey to recruit the appropriate personnel. And for us is a milestone. But recruiting the appropriate personnel is not sufficient. We need to build our surveillance system. We need to build our regulatory framework, which is very, very challenging. To make rulemaking in Israel is not something that is very easy. When we speak on cybersecurity, which is a cross-domain area, it's much, much more difficult. We have various entities, various service providers, not just airlines, but also maintenance organization, ATM, air traffic management units, airport operators, aircraft manufacturer organizations. So there is a variety, and it's a challenge by itself. And I would say that another challenge, a big challenge, is how we integrate cybersecurity in our state safety program and mechanism for how we manage safety in proactive way. Shai spoke in the previous panel how you change the culture. It's the same umbrella of state safety plan and our proactive approach to mitigate safety risks relating to security. Yeah, it is challenging.
Thank you, Eli, for this elaborated answer. It's always people, process, technology at the end, always. I think it was Ayal, you mentioned before, it was funny, you mentioned about the floppy disks. And thinking back, one of the main challenges was actually getting floppy disks. Where do you get floppy disks from? Exactly. There's
It still happened.
One of the major, I'm not kidding, one of the issues that we had was getting those floppy disks. We even thought about AliExpress at some point because we simply couldn't get them. True story. Eliran. So Eli talked about how they try to achieve overall regulatory capacity. I wanted to ask whether you feel that current aviation cybersecurity regulators are actually strong and adaptive enough. We mentioned the evolving sophisticated cyber threats to civil aviation. Do you think that supply chain compromise, state-sponsored attacks? Do you feel that regulators and regulations are strong enough to cope with this?
So I think that the regulation in the aviation industry compared to like 2 years ago, it went a big step forward. I mean, the awareness among the regulator and the standards, and actually, first time we already have in effect a regulation that deal with cybersecurity as a regulation, not as an advisory like the FAA has, or as a suggested standard, but as an actual regulation, which is Part IS, that come into effect as mandatory in February 2026, and it's already in delegation since October. So that's a big step forward. However, we heard today from Dr. Christopher about the AI development and the advantage that the attacker has, and we see it also in the defense. I mean, whoever have been here in the last 2 years and saw what the cost of the missiles and other weapons that they send to us here, and what we need to defend with. The procedure of the regulation, the process of the regulation until it came, the attacker again getting much faster. And also, as Eli discussed, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not enough to put the document of the regulation. You need to enforce it. You need the expertise to enforce it. You need the resources to enforce it. And you need the political background and the political backup to that. And we all know how much it's tough. So I think eventually what left is, and I'm very, very happy about this session and about what both made the Major General Amikam mention and in the panel. It's all eventually come to us, to the industry level. We need to act fast to get better visibility on what we are doing as much as possible, adapt whatever we can adapt in terms of technologies, and build the culture of safety. That's I think the bottom line with the industry. I'm as a pilot, I know that we build all the time around safety. We start with safety and we finish with safety before we go to the aircraft, and at everything that we are doing. And it's same in the airlines, and also for the maintenance people. They think safety. If they see something, they talk about it. They don't think cyber. And we want them to think cyber as well, to understand that if the maintenance laptop has the password and username, the maintenance laptop of the Gulfstream 650 sit in the airplane with the note and these things that we've seen of username and password, it's not awareness. Or cabin management system that open inside the cabin manager of the passengers. So that's the thing that we need to do.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Tamir, Eli mentioned before different approaches coming from different regulators. Now we see that with the EASA and the Part IS, the European Aviation Safety Agency. We see that with the FAA, TSA, other authorities. In Israel, it's a very interesting story because we see some very substantial steps that were taken. For example, Resolution 4814, if I'm not mistaken, right? Can you please share with us the Israeli angle in approaching this topic?
Sure. So again, I'm with the Israel National Cyber Directorate. So we are a regulator for cybersecurity in Israel, but INCD only has official registration power over critical infrastructure. And those are very few entities within the Israeli market. So in aviation, it's basically only the Israel Airport Authority. All right. So the airlines are not considered critical infrastructure because there are some redundancies, but rather essential entities. So when we started this journey together with CAI, we had to form a completely new policy of how we approach this. And this started with the government resolution that you mentioned that authorized CAI and INCD to figure this out. We created a committee that worked for 2 years, and we came out with a national policy for aviation cybersecurity. And based on that, this is now part of the actions that CAI is taking to bring in experts and to build their oversight capacity. But eventually, the good thing about aviation is that it's a very regulated sector, as Eliran mentioned. I also work around maritime in INCD, and I can tell you there it's very fluid, right? It's on the water. In aviation, there's ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization. It puts out its policy instructions, and then FAA and the EASA, FAA in the US and the EASA in Europe, accept that and make that into regulation. The Europeans are often leading, and that's how Part IS came to be. And then everyone needs to comply, right? So Israeli airlines have to comply with Part IS. They don't really need to wait for CAI to put out new regulations. So that's an advantage. And one of the key points of the national policy is that it has to be compliant with international regulation. And then it's up to us to assist, to do the oversight, which is what CAI will be doing, and to do as many collaboration and to support them from the professional point of view. And that's what INCD is doing. So there are some movements in action. It takes time, but I think we're on the right path.
Thank you. That's actually very reassuring. So thank you for that. Tsofit, Eliran touched on this before. At the end of the day, you are in the field, so to speak. You are there. You are the one that needs to digest all these regulators and everything that has to be achieved. Where do you think that ultimately the accountability for cybersecurity compliance, particularly Part IS, where does it need to sit within the organizational structure? We see, for example, compliance officers in certain organizations. We see now with DPOs emerging. Up till then, privacy was kind of one of the topics that the CISO had to deal with. Now we see a DPO. Where essentially do you feel that the cybersecurity compliance issue needs to sit within the organizational structure?
Wow, Roee, it's internal political question.
I know.
Organization.
You need to.
But I answer you.
You can maneuver. You have a couple of pilots there. They will help you maneuver.
And diplomatic answer. It's about cross-functional teamwork, but in the bottom line,
okay. But the true answer.
Yeah. The liability sits with the CEO, period. But the authority to execute is given to the CISO, not because I'm a CISO, because I think cybersecurity is a flight safety and business risk. The CEO is he is the accountable manager and must own it. But there are three important things to the CEO to success to manage those regulations and to take accountability about this. The first one is to direct line, and he needs to own budget, to own wallet. He can't fight with the IT. He can't fight with the avionics engineers. He needs to direct line to the CEO, which is the accountable manager. And he needs to veto power. The CISO must have formal authority to sign off on the new system, as well on the avionics and engineering system, security by design, etc. And there is no silos. I believe in teamwork and task force and joint efforts with our engineers, our avionics, and the same table, the same discussion, but only one can have the responsibility about this regulation concerned cybersecurity.
I couldn't agree more, actually. As a previous CISO, I can share with you that these discussions around sufficient authority and resources and cross-departmental influence, it's a never-ending discussions. And firsthand, I can tell you that Tsofit is an amazing example of being able to achieve all of that. Eli, again, we talked about new technologies that continue to evolve from the civil aviation, from the regulatory perspective, maybe you can share with us how do you prepare yourself to ensure the safety of the airspace within this evolving technological environment?
Yeah, new entrants is a big topic, but very relevant to this discussion because new entrants and cybersecurity go hand by hand, and we have an inherent problem. I mean, the industry go very fast, and regulators always lagging behind. So it's a problem. They need us. They need to be certified. We need to assure safety. If we take, for example, the new concepts of U-space, unmanned space, for the first time in history, many aircraft, maybe hundreds of aircraft in the low-level operation will be managed not by human, but by software, which is almost autonomously, almost without man in the loop. It's a big issue for us. And we know that in order to certify those new entrants, those new service providers, we must refer to the issue of cybersecurity. What we need to do? We need to do many things, and some of them I spoke before. I would emphasize the importance of collaborating with our partners. First of all, the INCD, to exploit their expertise, and to cooperate with the Ministry of Transport to enable those operations. We need to cooperate with international organizations because in other countries, this, for example, kind of U-space concept is implemented there, and we can contribute and gain from their experience, and we do it. It's not a future concept. Large-scale demonstrations of this kind of U-space concept is already implemented here. So it's a big issue, big challenge for us. And last but not least, I think that we need to adapt our approach to regulations. Regulations need to be much more performance-based rather than prescriptive. Otherwise, we cannot go anywhere.
Thank you, Eli. Again, it demonstrates what we've said before. Civil aviation is a global ecosystem, and definitely a global challenge. Tamir, Eliran touched on this before. As a representative of someone that has been behind the stick, so to speak, as a representative of what we call a frontline staff, how do you correctly interpret and apply information security risks within the broader safety context?
So I think it was said many times that aviation is a safety-first sector, and that's how it should be. And eventually, if you think about safety, and immediately everyone thinks of the aircraft, and rightfully so. And in that front, obviously the crews, the air crews, and the cabin crews are the first line of defense, right? But then there's a challenge. First, pilots are used to work according to SOPs, standard operating procedures. They have these books for regular procedures, for emergency procedures. If this happens, this is what you do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Usually the other pilot in the cockpit needs to repeat and make sure everything is done, and then you're safe. But then when you think about a cyber incident, there's a malicious person, a human on the other side. Who knows how it may manifest? So how do you write an SOP for that?
Does it actually matter while you're flying? I mean, you need to operate the incident. Does it really matter if the cause is cyber or other?
So that's a great question, and we
hasn't planned. I didn't even write it. I swear.
Nothing here is planned. It's all spontaneous. So it's a great question, and actually, when we started thinking about this challenge together with CAI, by the way, this was one of the points that came out. And certainly, if the attack would manifest in a way that a malfunction may manifest, then they would work according to the SOP. So If the engine goes off, they have an SOP, and that's what they'll do. But if now something strange is happening, if the fuel is going up rather than down, if I don't know, in the cabin the air pressure is suddenly changing or the lights are going on and off, they don't have an SOP for that, right? So we went out and we actually did an experiment together with CAI and the French FAA, DIRGAC, and then a French airline that they brought along, and we did a test, an experiment in a simulator, in a real simulator. We brought in pilots from that airline. We didn't tell them what they knew. They were coming for an experiment, but they thought they're coming for an experiment of the effectiveness of e-learning. And we took one group and we gave them an e-learning deck on some technical system. And the other group went through that e-learning deck, but also one with cybersecurity incidents. And then we put them in the cockpit, and they flew a leg with, and they were hit by 5 cybersecurity incidents. All of them were in the deck that they went through. Once they were in the cockpit, they just went back to usual. Yeah. So
I want to say something about this. Sorry to interrupt. Think about GBS. Yeah. Oh.
You would, 5 years ago, as a pilot, if I would have seen my position on the map different from what I was, where I thought I was, my initial thought was I did something wrong in my, and I got lost. Today, if you ask me if I see my position somewhere else, oh, that's yes. So that's a change of culture that affects actually what's going on in the car.
Exactly, and that's one of the conclusions that we came up with, that we have to have at least the awareness of the air crews that something that like this might happen at some point. And then, even if they don't have an SOP, at least they have what is called airmanship. Like, the logic of how to operate. They can cross-check with the ground control or with the airline operations. They can take some actions. And we went forward with that. Now, the best next thing you think is, okay, let them train in the simulator. Unfortunately, adding simulator trainings for pilots in the world is very regulated, very expensive, very complex. So that's, maybe sometime in the future. But we started with awareness training, and we are working together with Elal and Tsofit here to build this kind of training, at least for Israeli pilots, and that's a start. So, it's a start, as I said.
Thank you. That was actually very, very interesting. Thank you. I was first introduced to Eliran, to CyViation, some years ago, and I was fascinated. Really amazing technology. And one thing that I couldn't grasp, and maybe you can share with us, is legacy systems. Okay, legacy systems that are central. They're central to operations, basically. But as we all know, they were not designed for today's cybersecurity requirements. How did you tackle this?
So I think first we sometimes we say legacy system it's equal safety, and I want to make sure that everyone understands this is not the case. I mean, it doesn't mean if we have a legacy system, it doesn't mean that it's a safety issue. And yes, this kind of legacy system, like for example, instrument landing system or VOR that you mentioned, or TCAS, the traffic anti-collision system, all of this system can easily be spoofed in a way. However, at the end of the day, what's important is that these are legacy system. We know how they work. The pilots are trained. They train on some sort of malfunction on that as well. So with the awareness that something can get wrong, and references and cross checks with other sources that they have, they definitely can do that. We mentioned here GPS spoofing. I mean, eventually, Israel was completely spoofed during the 2 years, right?
Spoofing, yeah.
The pilots of Elal were managed once you understand the system, you understand the GPS, what other system it might affect, where this effect can be crucial. So if you go to land or you are taking off, then you need to make sure that this system is isolated if you are concerned of, for example, GPS spoofing. So there are ways to overcome these issues on the legacy system. However, with that said, I think the industry already understand that this is something that need a different treatment from the industry as an industry, and there are forums of the ISAC, the Aviation ISAC, that was established especially for that, to build a cybersecurity framework for mitigation and for the aircraft, with the understanding that this is something else, very similar to what have been developed already in the automotive industry.
Thank you for that. Tsofit, again, as a representative of the hands-on organization at the edge of a regulatory process, we cannot do a cyber regulation panel without mentioning EASA's Part IS. And usually when I work with organizations, I keep hearing I am ISO certified. And Part IS, I'm sure you'll agree, is aligned with ISO. But there are still aviation-specific gaps. If you can please tell us what aviation-specific gaps ISO-certified organization must close in order to achieve full compliance.
That's a great question. We are
unplanned again.
Unplanned, of course, spontaneous. We are talking about ISO 27001, yeah?
Definitely.
So imagine, think of this way. ISO 27001
It ran out of batteries because it's No? Oh. There is a CPO for this.
So maybe this is my cue. So the ISO is a top-notch general security body. And imagine the EASA Part IS is like a helmet and flight a bodysuit. I think the safety first scope is the first gap that we can't see in ISO 27001. To protect all the companies, ISO is more general, is handled about the data, the emails, and etc. The Part IS talking about specific avionics components and the mechanism and the systems. And about the reporting, in ISO, you need to report when you have an incident, handled incidents internally. And the EASA Part IS, the focus is when you have incidents, you need to report to the NAA, the National Aviation Authority, or to EASA inspector. This is the crucial compliance steps and the mainly gaps between the ISO and the EASA Part IS.
Thank you. So last but not least, an open question. At the end of the day, what do you feel are the most significant operational, organizational changes that aviation stakeholders, could be airlines, airports, MROs, for example, what steps they must implement in order to comply with the upcoming regulations, specifically EASA Part IS, but others as well? What would you suggest are the top? They go out of this panel. What do you feel is the first thing that a CISO needs to do?
So I think Tsofit, of course, touched on the big difference. And first, understand that we are talking here about ISMS, which is a complete system that is requiring ongoing monitoring and not an incident reports and not necessarily only risk assessment.
That is at the core of the PAUTA.
It's the entire system, and in order to achieve that, it must come top down, and the CEO is the AM as Tsofit mentioned, and that's I think the first things that is needed, because changing culture on the organization cannot be bottom up. I mean, it's something that must be with fully commitment from the entire management and board, of course. So I think that's something that I would touch upon, and of course from the entire. And this huge amount of works that the CISOs have, and we were talking with many around the world, and they tell us, look, we have such amount of assets to put together, and the aircraft which is flying, right? We talk about all this space is the last one, because it's really complicated for them to assess. The visibility for that is very low. So that's another, and they don't have the tools to report on the aircraft and what's going on the aircraft. So these are I think the two main challenges that I see from my perspective.
I think the first thing is to realize that it's not about compliance. The point is not to comply with the regulation. Of course, they have to do that, but the regulation is there to help them secure and ensure the safety of their passengers. And that's the first point. And, I always tell people that when I came to INCD, it was just 5 years ago, everyone thought that hospitals would not be attacked, would never be attacked, because it's human life, and what cyber attacker that is coming after money would go after, would take the risk of people dying because of them, and then all the law enforcement will be after them. And we know the next story, that hospitals are being attacked left and right all the time, and there are casualties. So we have to assume, unfortunately, that it will come to aviation. And I think, not to give anyone ideas, but I think a ransomware on the screens of a plane holding out in the air, it is, might be quite effective. So I think we have to assume that, and mainly the CEOs have to take that into consideration and allocate the repercent, because the CISOs are really with us. Usually the CISOs are afraid with the regulation because it has with the CEO. The CEO have to take this assumption and put the right resources to be cyber secure.
Franco didn't pay overtime for the microphones. So
the batteries are very expensive.
Batteries are expensive.
Well, you don't want to check the resilience of the weather. Yeah, I heard we have 24 more hours of this panel over.
They can't leave.
In the 2 minutes they are I go.
So again, I think the most important is joint board and joint Laufer boards for the chief's safety. So to shout that. All right. So the task force between the CISO and between the chief safety officer, it's very important. I have experience at Tel Aviv. We need to join efforts with the engineers, with the avionics, with the safety, and it's not about technology. We have an internal joke in my team that hackers don't work with Jira platform, and they don't wait to regulation documents and procedures, etc. So the second important thing is to train the why, not the how, and stop making training technical. Show pilots how mechanism, how to hack, and how the impact to load sheet, to fuel, to everything, and not in theoretical information. This is two important things in my opinion.
A few years ago, we had a public consultation on the part information security regulations, where they're drafted by EASA. I think, Shai, that you participated in this workshop. And I was surprised to hear from the representatives, most of them were CISOs, that in the end of the day told us, we want regulations. We want regulations that will help us. Please do it. That's how we can go to our management and get more resources and raise awareness. So regulations is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. It's need to be done properly. It's need to be balanced. And we want to achieve it. And I will end with what I will close the circle. Because Roee, you asked us to prioritize one thing, one big thing. So hire the best people you can, qualified personnel. It's always the first critical element to build your system. Just get the right people.
So thank you very much, everyone. I can tell you that for a CISO, as a previous CISO and someone that was an airport at the end, is like at the hub of the civil aviation ecosystem. Can tell you there are two things that work for a CISO. One is regulation. This is actually something that you can use in order to leverage. The second thing is a cyber incident that happens to a different organization. So whenever a cyber incident happens to a different organization of yours, you have some sort of, oh, that's too bad. But deep down inside, you say, okay, now I might be able to leverage this in front of management and get a few more resources. Trade secret. So thank you very much. I like to close by saying that I honestly feel that what is happening here is not trivial. Okay, I've been working with a lot of civil aviation stakeholders globally, and what is happening in this stage is far from being trivial. I'd like to thank Franco and Code Blue for arranging this. Yeah, please go ahead. And what I mean by not trivial is we actually have on one stage the CISO for the national airline for El Al. We have flag carrier, sorry. We have the Civil Aviation Authority, the Israeli National Cyber Directorate. We have a very cool and important vendor of a very cutting-edge technology. We have our small ecosystem here on stage. It's one of the magic that can happen in Israel, and Franco is the magician. So thank you all for being here and attending this.